amended, the 1999 Constitution as amended is still giving a whole lot of Nigerians sleepless nights or headaches, as it is perceived not to still be the Constitution that the country really needs for her development, her growth, and stability. Of course, on the conversation this morning, we'll take a look at how the Constitution is at the moment and what are some of the things missing in this Constitution that will probably make governance seemingly more encompassing, not only to Nigerians, but to everybody, of course, who is a Nigerian. And, of course, here this morning is a friend of the house, Razak Olukoba. Thank you for being here on the program.
Good morning.
Today. Let's start this way. We do know that, of course, the origin of the current Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, although amended, is a product of military rule. And a lot of people have argued the fact that we, as expressly stated in the Constitution, is not a true representation of the thoughts, the feelings of Nigerians. I know that we've talked about this a couple of times. So let's go back again in history. Yes, a product of military rule, but it's been amended. But would you say that as it stands today, the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution as amended, is still not a true reflection of how Nigeria's Constitution should be written?
Thank you very much. The part that led to the creation of that Constitution is in itself a problem. The content is also a problem. You know very well that the Constitution is what determines who a citizen is. And the Constitution of today is not well defined.
Okay.
Now, who is a citizen?
You mean who an origin or a citizen is?
Of Nigeria. What is Constitution is a document that spells out duties of government and also defines the sovereignty. Who gives sovereignty to a country is the people. And that's the area of concern. Now, who is a Nigerian? That is on one side. And on the other side is that a law will be popular if it is populated in terms of participation of how it came to be. No matter how difficult a law is, if you are part of that law will be popular. So that is one of the fundamental things that is missing in the Constitution of Nigeria. Even the military has done previous Constitution in 1989 and 1979. Yes, 1979. The military then gave Nigerians the opportunity to look at it before it came on board. The Constitution of 1999, nobody knew anything about it.
Right.
Until a few days to come into government. That's why till today, you still see so many contradictions that people are discovering on a daily basis.
Okay.
In 1979, Rotimi Williams said that this is a document that lied against itself. It was because he was able to read it. He came on board in 1978 before Obasanjo gave it to Nigerians as a constitution in 1979. But this one was not done in that way. And that's a problem on itself, that I'm not part of the law that says that we are forgetting who we are as a nation. We are now one. We have to debate it. That as a Yoruba man, as an Hausa and as Igbo, as Ibio Biomo, in 1958 Constitution, 10 languages were mentioned in the Constitution. Yoruba, Igbo, Ijo, Ibio, Nupe, and all those ones were mentioned. So in 1999 Constitution, it says that we are one Nigeria. So if that
multi-ethnic groups, though we are one Nigeria.
Though we are one Nigeria. And that should be thoroughly debated. That if you want us to put our differences behind us, to call us one Nigeria, it must be debated. And that was what Awolowo, Sardauna, and Zik pointed out, that we can't call ourselves a nation. No. We can call ourselves Federal Republic because we are a federative unit. There are groups of people who were existing in Nigeria before the British came.
The colonial rule.
We have our way of life. In fact, we had our government, Oyo Kingdom, Benin Kingdom. Kaduna was there. Kano, Sokoto, all of them were empires on their own before we were brought together. So if you want to bring such people together, it is one of the biggest mistakes to ever think that you will lump them together with the same law in place. with the notion that you must have one religion, you must have one value, and your perspective about
Must
the
be
country
same.
must be the same.
Right.
So,
Razak,
and
sorry
that
to
is
cut
what
you.
the national has pushed aside.
Right, sorry to cut you, but just for you, for clarity here, but then we still operate as under the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Does that negate the fact that it is still a republic?
It is only in paper.
Okay.
Even at occasions, you say that, don't let us discuss ethnic issue here. Don't discuss religion. It is wrong. You see, every country that have this kind of difference, it's not a deficiency at all.
It should be a plus.
It should be a plus. And that is why you must not take after any nation. In the political science, who you are is what determines what kind of sovereignty you must have. Who we are as a people is what will determine the kind of constitution you will have. So it is your political culture that will say in America, almost one culture, almost one religion, almost one value. Power can be concentrated at the center.
Okay.
There will be no question of it's an Ijaw man, it's a Fulani man, it's a Yoruba man. But when you lump the entire power together and hand it over to a segment of a government,
Right.
and say that take permission from the federal government before you do it as a state, it is the basis of our crisis today. And until we address it, we may be looking in the wrong direction. And tell me any president in this country that is not accused of promoting ethnicity. No, since 1999. The reason is simple. The reason is that all the federal unit, the states in the country, take their decision based on the body language, and that's the way the law has stated it.
Okay.
From the federal government. Whereas it's not supposed to be so. Once you do that, you give people to begin to look at anybody in power as taking and usurping the right of all Nigerians, which is the reason why today people are still saying that Tinubu is running Yoruba government. That is not because Tinubu is a bad man. That is because the power to decide the direction of the country is with the federal government. And who is presiding by the president? So until such a time, we first admit to ourselves,
Right.
which is not a minus, that we are a federal unit, a nation with numerous
Other
kind
nations.
of people,
Okay.
such that the way we run our life must come with a decision that, as an Igbo man, my own definition of Nigeria is this: you can't put that decision out.
Okay.
As a Fulani man, this is my perspective about Nigeria.
Right.
As a Yoruba man, just like the founders of Nigeria, of today, the independent year in 1960, took that decision that there will continue, there will be crisis.
But don't
If
you see that as being chaotic if eventually what you've proposed now is the order
not what
of the
I
day?
proposed.
Okay.
It's not let me correct the impression.
Okay,
Now,
what you're saying now.
Who you are is what determines the way you are going to structure your society.
Right.
So as a political scientist, I'm telling you the norms. What should be the actual situation of Nigeria is that you must allow each ethnic group to fester
Right.
under a nation. And the way to do it is not to concentrate that power at the center.
I was
When you
coming
allow-
to that because that is also one of the things that, many have said that as it stands, the current constitution has given too much power to the center. And so, of course, the federal has 52% and the others are sharing the rest of the power. And so, again, this is where the principle of federalism will come in, where others have also said it is not something to be preached just on paper. It is something that has to be done and has to be practiced. And so how do we go about ensuring that, peradventure, if there is either a new constitution or a further amendment to the current constitution, the principle of centralization of power is taken into consideration?
Well, don't let us encourage the president to think about amending the constitution. We should have a brand new constitution. If we have been amending the constitution since 1999, and it's not sufficient to take care of our challenges.
So a new constitution entirely.
If President Tinubu amend this constitution again, in 10 years' time, we'll be talking about amendment again. Of course, even if you do have a brand new constitution and we feel it should be amended, we'll amend it. But to put the challenges we have behind us properly, it is good for the president to initiate a process where we have a new constitution. It is not a difficulty. It is people who are a beneficiary of the present constitution that is injecting fear into Nigerians. It's achievable under Tinubu within 1 or 2 years. All you need to do is to identify areas of challenges, which is number one, that the structure of the country should be done in such a way that all the states must be made to be so independent to the extent that they have that liberty and freedom to decide the direction of their life in terms of security, in terms of economy, and an opportunity for them to protect their values. So once you are able to establish that, that means we have taken a decision that we recognize the kind of people we are. If you look at Britain now, Britain and America is almost one nation in terms of culture and value, but they dare not operate the system America operates.
Right.
It is a united kingdom. If you look at that name, united is kingdoms that came together. And as a result of that, the Queen of England will not tinker with the freedom of the Scottish, the Welsh, and the Irish. That should be the case in Nigeria too. So when people say that regionalism is barbarity, you should have gone to a country who have one value, culture, and religion. You are in Nigeria, and to that extent, it means that you are a nation of numerous identities. And if that is the case, you don't lump identity together. And till tomorrow, that is why it is impossible for an Igbo man to totally understand who a Yoruba man is. An Hausa man to totally understand who an Igbo man is. It's difficult for us to understand a Fulani man because it's not identified in our constitutions. That be careful. In regions, what built people are the institutions, the churches, the mosques. You go to listen to sermons every Sunday and Friday, you come back a new person. So the regions, the institutions in the regions that time is what form who Nigerians are there. They behave well. If you go to Igbo land, they have their culture. If you go to North, they have their culture. But under this system, it's not defined. And that is why you see a Deborah who will not understand the implication of what she has said on social media. It's not her fault. She was stoned to death. But it's not her fault. But if it is a society that defines clearly that as a Christian, the moment you step into another region, it is a terrain that's a peculiarity for their religion, and these are their laws.
So you've talked about...
If you look at the Vatican in Rome, is thoroughly a Christian state. Anybody that tinkers with the idea of going there to build a mosque is looking for trouble, a crisis. So the same psychology is what must interpret Nigeria. Like if I go into the east, there are things you don't do in the eastern part of Nigeria. There are things you don't do in Lagos. Many people who say Lagos is a no man's land. It's not their fault. What is responsible is the configuration of Nigeria. The law did not compel anybody to. You must understand the culture of the land. So if it is understood thoroughly, people won't go to anywhere and say that it belongs to nobody again. People will do that. So in Nigeria now, today, let's remove something from our mind now. That to say that we are not one is not a deficiency. India Parliament recognized the fact that India is an embodiment of numerous ethnic groups, numerous languages. To that extent, they said English a general language. And they brought on board other local language in their parliament. And that will give assurance to citizens.
That it is encompassing.
That this is a country that
Razak, you've talked about the fact that as it stands, amending this constitution again is not needed. What the country needs is an outright constitution. In the present situation we are, where, of course, the country at the moment is battling with loads of issues, is it possible to start thinking of getting a new constitution? And if that is the case, what is the very first step that must be done? What must we identify first? And who would have the responsibility of getting this constitution on board?
Two questions. You said in the midst of the crisis.
In the midst of the hardship.
The reason why we're having this crisis
is because we don't have a Bible to work with.
Yes. And let me just point two issues to you. If security is not localized, based on peculiarity of each region, we are not getting out of insecurity issue in this country.
Okay.
Which is part of the need for a new constitution. A constitution that will allow each state or region
to form their own security, what works for them.
Values. In the north, we don't need to go and take military men to come and kill Shekau. It's a religious advocacy. It's a misinterpretation of the Quran that led to the creation of Boko Haram. What you need is a superior knowledge. In some region, you should be gone. In Niger Delta, you don't preach to people that you're shooting gun. You go there with a superior fire force. But what led to the reason why people thought that all Christians should be killed, all non-Muslims should be killed? They thought they find it in the Quran. If that is the case, people have a better understanding. So the security network in the north will not advise a gun issue.
Okay.
We'll talk about a superior knowledge that will engage the followers.
The change of mentality.
And if that is done, it wouldn't have led to the killing of Yusuf. So, and again, this architecture of security in this country today is the reason why police can't do their work properly.
Okay.
There's a limit to which the federal government can concede to the federal police in terms of budgetary allocation. You can't give the police all they need. We are not going to be spending on army, navy.
So this is where the state police.
The limited they have, they have cannot secure the life of 250 million. So it's not about the deficiency on the side of the police. That is why we are saying that state should complement.
Right.
So when state complement, every farmers will go back to their farms. There will be more food. So the problem we will find ourselves today is actually coming from the way we run our country. That's number one. Two is that, you see, energy is a serious business all over the world. And if you want to engage in energy business, which is a blame to Dangote, you don't run it as if you are running Indomie business. It's a serious business that you know that some people will come for you. Our government should realize that as long as each state, each business segment in the country is not encouraged to go into refineries, increase in fuel will come again after 6 months. And as a result of that, the sources of each region should be at the disposal of each region with intervention from the federal government.
Okay.
On power sector, allow each state. It's a regional thing. Power access is a regional thing. In the north, it should be sun. In the south here, it should be water, wind, and the rest of it. In the east, it should be coal. In the south side, it should be gas. So one same law cannot be interpreted wrongly and rightly in this sense. So that economic access to the resources of each region should be enshrined in our constitution.
So if you
keep amending, the paper will turn to shreds.
Right. Just to add up to what you said before you answer the second part of the question would be, is it also possible that in the course of drafting a new constitution, we should also start looking to going back to regional system of government as against what we have now that is more is broader in perspective, because now you've mentioned the fact that it will take the regions and the states, it will give them the liberty to find homegrown solutions to their problems. So are you advocating here, or are you suggesting here that while a new constitution is being written, it should also be considered that regional form of government may be better?
I thank you for that question, because it's been modeled up. The reason why regions succeed in the days of Awo and Zik was because the center was not powerful. So if you are thinking of going back to the region, it may not be necessary.
Okay.
Because when we add 4 regions, 3, later 4, we will have created more regions between that time and now. Because numbers of people are increasing. And it may be difficult for the regions to limit the limited resources they have to be able to take care of. So we will still have more regions. What we should be looking at in our constitution is not to concentrate power
at the center.
In the center.
Okay.
If you go to regions with this formation that the center decides everything, we are just removing money from the left pocket
and putting it in the right pocket.
You have not spent money. So we should bear that in mind. So what we are saying in essence is that the way Nigeria is structured, the constitution designed it for Nigeria not to work. And if it is a conjecture by some of us, since 1999 to date, when was the last time that we praised the current president? The picture has always been that the past president was better than you. Obasanjo was better than Jonathan Yaradua. When Buhari was there, we said, oh, so something is wrong with the Buhari. Jonathan was far better. Now today we are saying that at least Buhari is a Baba go slow. But at least the dollar is not this bad to a naira. You see, be able to buy a few things. These guys are not bad guys. Our president don't suffer any deficiency. It is our inability to admit that the political structure of this country is deficient.
Okay.
So, there's no Nigerian president that has not increased fuel price. What does that suggest to us? It suggests to us that the market strategy we have adopted in having access to energy in this country is wrong. Since 1985, there has been turnaround maintenance of our refineries.
And none is working.
Up to today. And we still think that that model, if you continue, its price of commodity will go down. So the advocacy is us. This noise making will get to the federal government. That is why our appeal goes to the president now that the bulk of the work comes from him.
Okay.
If you look at CODESA in South Africa, Constitutional Development in South Africa, it was at the formative stage of the government that they recognized that no, we must not practice this kind of constitution in South Africa. And that was why South Africa today don't have question of constitutional deficiency. So our own tool has to go back to the scratch, determine what kind of constitution we want. This kind of constitution is not meant for Nigeria at all. So the advocacy must start from the government, particularly the president, that all the stakeholders, the original owners of this country, who are the indigenous people.
Who are the indigenous people? Who are the original owners?
The Yorubas. That was the Yorubas, the Fulani, the Hausas, the Ibibio, all over the world, the indigenous people are the owner of the country.
Okay.
It's not the later comer of maybe National Association of Nigerian Students and the NLC.
Okay, now I get okay, now I understand what you meant by what you said. The indigenous the ethnic groups are the ones, okay.
You call them, then they will lay a foundation for the country.
Right.
People will express who they are, that this is who a Yoruba man is. So that is why you recognize that it is dangerous to have one value for this country. There must be numerous values.
Let me quickly take you back. This same, what you've just talked about, could be likened to what Anthony Enahoro did.
I was part of PRONACO.
Yes, and then of course at the Sovereign National Conference, there was a document at the end of that conference. Until date, the
document is still alive.
Till date, we are yet to implement some of the recommendations from that document. Since you were part of PRONACO, you were part of those that sat. It was in Magodo here.
Yeah.
I remember vividly. Can that be a working document? Can we start from there, dust that document, and use that document as a working tool in realizing the goal for a new constitution for the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
Yes, there are so many documents that will eventually lead to our constitution, if you want a brand new constitution. There are so many efforts. There's PANDEV, there are so many, the Islam agenda, then there's also the development agenda for Western Nigeria.
Right.
So it is those documents that we brought on board, that the government will have their own role to play, ethnic will have their own role to play. There will be no voting. It's going to be a negotiation. In fact, the bigger ethnic groups will negotiate with smaller ethnic groups in their own region.
Okay.
They will have an agreement, because part of the fears for changing of this structure is not only people who are the beneficiary. Part of the fear comes from minority group. The minority groups seem to prefer this system because the moment you say state should decide, the minorities will feel that they are in trouble.
Yeah, they'll be marginalized further.
The largest in the Ijaw axis, the Nupe, the minority in the north, which is the Kadia and the Jukun, the five going on in Kaduna too. So all over the country. So that is why, if we don't want to continue to have a country that is riddled with crisis, we have to go back and discuss it.
So what will be the role of the National Assembly in all of this?
We have to redesign our National Assembly, and they should not have any fear. They think they are going to, they may not be losing their salary. they will just decide that before their tenure will finish, it's going to coincide with the time the constitution will come into place. Because the political class, who are a direct beneficiary of this system, are part of the people creating an impression in the mind of Nigerians that you want to turn Nigeria upside down. You want to talk about say, anarchism, which is not. Okay, you spend your 8 years and you go. And come back to complain like other Nigerians. Why can't you have a society whether you are a senator, you are a governor, you are a president? If you become ordinary Nigerian, your security is guaranteed. Your economic survival is guaranteed. And that of your children and your children's children, no matter the kind of money you have gathered together. If there is not better country, then go to a physical way you made you that.
Okay.
You don't want to leave a legacy. So we must leave a legacy for our children. We have tried this system and we have seen where it has led us into.
Okay.
Review of constitution is not anti-north, which is the impression many people are creating in the mind of ordinary northerners.
Okay.
It's not anti-north. And the notion that when the British was going, he added over Nigeria to the north. The northerners should realize that attitude is an insult, because they thought that our northern brothers will be used to manipulate. So it is not a plus. It's not a mark of respect for you to say that this constitution gives Nigeria over to us.
Okay.
No. And that is why the system of Nigeria became so porous that external influences became easy for them to dip a hand into us if we are federating units.
Right.
Tell me how Kabas will be able to sabotage Nigeria.
Okay.
If the Nigeria region is not working, the region that is working will complement the one that
is not working.
But when you have this magnitude of institution, if you go for it, you easily get it.
That takes me to the question of strengthening of institutions.
Yeah.
And so if, as we currently have it, we realize that people are more powerful than institutions in Nigeria. And so if we're looking at creating a new constitution, brand new constitution, what's your take on the fact that institutions should be more powerful than individuals, because we're talking about legacies and, seeing the future from now. So how do we ensure that we strengthen institutions and our institutions are respected?
If you don't structure your constitution very well, your institution will be very weak. For instance, if you look at the police institution now, first, the architecture of police institution in Nigeria is wrong. To say that it should be the IG that should to the security of the entire nation. It's wrong. That's number one. Number two is that the appointment of IG should be restructured.
Okay.
The president should not have an overbearing influence on the appointment of IGs.
Should it just be the IG or institutions
should go through
generally?
the rank and file. They have the rank and file. They should go through the rank and file, so that when you get to a certain apex, the president might have a little influence on it. The same thing will stay too. And it is because of this political influence. That is the reason why you say police officer. They can't do their duty. The people put them there will always ask for a return, not financial return, but in terms of favor.
Okay.
So the institution of the police in the country today is weak, because the constitution defines the way it should be run in a manner that it can be strong. But when you have strong institutions, the same thing goes for INEC.
Okay.
We must design INEC in such a way that it is difficult for any political class to have influence on it. So that when you have a bureau that who becomes INEC chairman in the state, at the local government, at the federal level, someone who bring any political class who is either a member of PDP or APC, they are going to be professionals.
Okay.
So the same thing, the image of the country, which is about the foreign policy, our foreign policy is always diluted because the stand of a nation is what the foreign policy should be protecting in the rest of the world.
Right.
But when it is diluted with certain political motivations, you go to the rest of the world and stand misdefending Nigeria in a manner that creates bad impression about us. So what led to weak institution is how your constitution define it.
Okay.
If the head of an institution do not need the influence of the political class to get what is due to them in terms of their promotion, the way they emerge, they are going to be strong.
Okay.
And it goes for virtually all the
sectors.
institutions. And again, the critical sectors like the power sector, the transport sector, there should be a devolution of power.
Okay.
If government has done a road, the government should not be the one to be buying vehicles for you. If the government has done a railway, it should be the private sector driven, state government driven,
okay,
that will be buying coaches on it, so that I will use simple language that people understand. The same thing power sector. Power sectors is also, after the government has done, let me use the language, their wires all over the country. It can't be the government that will be generating
the power.
What the government should do is to create an enabling law
for the private sector to function.
They will not weaponize the energy.
Okay.
For criminal activity.
Razak,
so it should be the private sector.
We need
and
to
once
wrap
you want to do that, you must devolve power to state.
We need to wrap
the private
up.
sector.
But before we go, I'd like to ask you, peradventure, the president has the political will to ask that a new constitution be written for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Should there be a timeline? I mean, should there be a transition period where that constitution will be put to test and see whether or not it has met all of the requirements? And if that is, should it also be expressly stated in that constitution that it is, yes, it is due for a review per term, or should it be expressly stated that this constitution should either be reviewed or be upgraded after stipulated years?
Of course. That should be how all constitutions in the world should be done. It's only in Nigeria that a referendum is not injected into it. And that was why it became difficult for the military to give access to it before the swearing of the president.
Okay.
They barricaded everybody from it, because those are one of the things people will go and look at, that if this thing is not working, what do we do? If people want to say, I'm not part of the country again, it's not a big deal. The country is not going to come to an end. For me, I used to think that going separate way would be the best thing. But after reflection, I knew that to stay at Nigeria is the best thing. Okay. But it should undergo moderation. There should be a time frame. The president should start a rigorous political education, particularly to areas where people felt that changing of this system is going to decimate their life. So when we do a year or 6 months rigorous political education to educate ourselves on the importance and the need to have a brand new constitution, then the government can then proceed to begin to engage institutions and stakeholders and groups. In the lifespan of the president, this is the remaining lifespan of the president, up until the time it becomes for the second time, you may have a brand new constitution. It is a possibility. Okay. It's not that rigorous.
Is that easy?
It's that easy. It's not too serious that we bumping into each other. And it's the way out. I don't see any progress that's going to come my way with this constitution. It is designed in a manner that you keep having contradiction, and at the end of the day, an Igbo man will hold down someone responsible for his calamity and the world that's passing through. Okay. An Igbo man will say that it's a Yoruba man that is his problem. A Yoruba man will say it's a Fulani man. It is the way the constitution has been designed. Okay. There is no government that will come and live without accusation by some ethnic group that this government has decimated our own ethnic group. Right. There's no government. In that at Obasanjo time it was said, at Yanada's time and John time it was said, Buhari time it was, and today people are beginning also to accuse Tinubu that is decimating them. Okay. It's people, the government with Yoruba people. It's not their fault. It's the document we have handed over for them to work. It doesn't make their work easy at all. Okay. ASU strike is coming on board now. Right. The president in his mind will begin, who is ASU again? Not because he's not intelligent, he's not brilliant, but the workload on his head is enormous. ASU will go again. Okay. NSC will come again. Razak, and no matter other problem. On the final note, the federal government should have a limited role to play. Currency control, foreign policy, security of the nation, defend the integrity of Nigeria. It should be as limited as that. All of that responsibility should belong to the state. Right. On a final note, as we wrap up this conversation today, how important will it be for that new constitution you've called for and others are calling for to be subjected to a referendum and ensure that it has the buy-in of the people? Like we had, remember when the 1999 constitution was amended, it went to the 6 geopolitical zones, but yet a lot of people did say that they were not aware, they didn't have the buy-in of the amended constitution. Peradventure this scales through and there is a new constitution. How important will it be for every Nigerian to have a buy-in in that constitution? And that is why the first thing should be a thorough and rigorous advocacy by the government, so that there will be no excuse that I'm not aware that something like this is coming up. We should deploy all the forces at our disposal to talk about this constitution before it came on board. So when that consciousness is getting to a point where people are then willing to participate, then modality for participation should then be spelled out. For instance, in Yoruba land, there's a format already that we do that. There will be participation from, it's not a voting team, because you are not going there to become a senator, you are just going there to design a constitution for Nigeria. So the consciousness of Nigeria must be raised to the point where we must first agree that we need a new constitution. And it is possible to do that. Having done that, when that is done, then the content of what should be there should be the second thing, which is the most important thing for the constitution, the content. So it's possible under this president. Example has shown clearly to us now that the country may not be going anywhere with this constitution. And the earlier we do this thing is better. So that we won't be losing our country. There are sections of the country today that we are going to be talking to non-state actors. We are going to the north, we'll be talking to bandits before we have access. If you are going to the east, maybe it's ESN or IPOB that we'll be talking to before we have access. Whereas there's police and army there. And if you are going to a certain place in the south too, you will be talking to the Niger Delta militant. What is responsible is the Constitution of Nigeria. You will be losing the grip of your country gradually with this kind of constitution until you finally lose that grip. And I don't think it is better for us to wait to the point where it will get to that. The
time is now.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Razak Olokoba, social commentator and rights activist, for finding time to be here on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we've been speaking with Razak on the calls for a new constitution for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And in his closing remarks, he did say now is the best time to start working on giving Nigeria a new constitution, and that will need the input of everyone in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's the much we'll take on this side of the table. We'll take a quick break. When the conversation returns, the conversation will be on the other side. And of course, it promises to be another beautiful conversation.
The views expressed on this program do not represent that of the producer, management of Lagos Television, or the Lagos State Government. They remain the perspectives of those expressing them. Thank you for staying with Lagos Television.